am that very witch. When I sleep, my spirit slips away from my body and dances naked with the devil. That's how I signed his book.
No.
He bade me bring him an unbaptized babe, so I stole Sam and I gave him to my master. And I'll make any man or thing else vanish I like.
No.
Aye, and I'll vanish thee too if thou displeaseth me.
Be quiet.
Welcome to Ghoul Radio 3, As Above, So Below, Episode 2. I'm your host, Rob Cortez. For this episode, let's go back to when I was a freshman in high school, when I was first introduced to the hysteria of the Salem witch trials. Just a quick recap. It happened in the 1600s. A bunch of people were accused of witchcraft after some girls went batshit crazy in their town, and innocent people were hung. One guy was pressed to death. Years later, I visited Salem, Massachusetts during COVID. First, Salem in the fall is amazing. I'm a slut for the fall season, but I learned a lot. Visited several sites where the trials and hangings took place. The town is home to several shops that are ran by people who practice witchcraft and who embrace the Wiccan culture. So based on that experience and my willingness to learn, this episode is to uncover more of this world. Last year, I went to the Haunted Heritage exhibit at Villa Antigua Border Heritage Museum in downtown Laredo, where two of our special guests from last season hosted the event, Andrea Ordonez and Nightmare Hour Paranormal. This event was 30 years in the making, alongside the Laredo Paranormal Society. The exhibit was called Strange Possessions. A collection of over 20 haunted items were displayed, and the staff itself warned those who were curious to see and learn to come at your own risk. There was also a warning at the entrance that warned those who ventured into the exhibit to exercise with caution. Among those items were a pair of haunted Raggedy Ann dolls, a clock, and an item that caught my attention: a witch's ritual box. The legend says that this item was discovered in a home's pantry in the historic St. Peter's district. The box was immediately handed over to Mr. Cuellar of LPRS. The homeowner, upon seeing it, described an immediate sense of discomfort. It was cleverly hidden on the top shelf of the pantry, where no one would take notice. Along with it was a small broom, double-faced coins with one face scratched up, another coin with a skull carved into it, assorted rings and pendants, and 3 glass bottles. All 3 glass bottles held ashes of a deceased person or persons. The bottles are presumed to be part of a ritual performed so that the person trapped in the bottle can never pass in the afterlife and is stuck forever. A private lab examined the ashes and confirmed they were human. One of the bottles can be seen open, while the others are still sealed shut, as LPRS was strongly warned never to open them by another witch. The consequences of opening them could be life threatening. And now, our special guest. I'm here with a special guest. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, Cool Radio. My name is Jose Ramirez. I'm an artist based out of Austin, Texas. I've been a native of Texas my whole life, pretty much, and I was actually born in Laredo, where you grew up too.
Yes, I grew up in Laredo, but I was born in Dallas. And I was raised in Nuevo Laredo.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Welcome to the show. We've been talking for a while, and throughout our conversation, you told me you knew a bit of witchcraft, Satanism, and art. We are here to talk about your personal experience. First question: who introduced you to witchcraft?
So I don't know that there was anybody in particular that introduced me to witchcraft per se, but like some of my earliest memories that I have of being a little kid was just being drawn to the concept of magic and watching movies like The Worst Witch that has like Fairuza Balk in it, Teen Witch from the 80s. That was kind of the foundation, I guess, so, coming from film, and then just having some natural sense of being drawn to witches in general. Because at the time, I mean, I was a kid. I would tie a blanket around my neck and like run around the house like I was flying with a cape and a broom. That was always a fun game, and I would have my brother pretend to be my cat. That was that introduction. As I got older in my teen years, I was starting to have more of a curiosity for it. Like I was drawn to I started listening to like heavy metal music a lot, and drawn to particularly female fronted bands, and female artists in general. Yeah, because in that realm, in that genre of music, like it's very very male dominated, and it was at the time as well. I found comfort in that because I was going through a lot of change, and being gay growing up in South Texas wasn't easy. You're still having to grow up with like the concepts of machismo and dealing with all of that shit. I'm sorry, can we cuss on it? There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, growing up with that kind of shit. So I found myself being drawn more to the craft, and I kind of dabbled in some things when I was little, like going to B Dalton's at Mall del Norte and like hanging out with my friends there, and like looking at the metaphysical section. So we would take a look at all those books, and we would always like read them. That was my first introduction to the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, and at the time I knew nothing about it. I just thought it was really fucking cool. And so, but simultaneously, I was brought up with Christian background. My family is a very devout Christian for most intents and purposes. But of course, my mom has the major spiritual belief, or that religious belief. I always questioned it, but I knew that I wasn't supposed to. My mom, I remember, she like shielded me a lot from being exposed to those kinds of things. Like when The Craft came out, and she kind of had an inkling that I was going to be drawn to that movie, and so she would hide it. Like if we went to my aunt's house or something, she would hide it from me. And so I went through a pretty dark time, which we don't really have to get into because that shit's all in the past. I just kind of was, not really in tune with magic. The concepts and the ideas of it were still there, and I really still enjoyed them, but they were just kind of on the back burner. It's just, stuff that I was into. When I was doing fashion a lot, some of the elements of witchcraft played inspiration. So I used to do fashion design in San Antonio between 2012 and like 2017. Like I said, a lot of my influence of witchcraft was poured into my work. But again, I wasn't really practicing anything. After that, I went through one of the darkest times of my life, like 2017 to 2021, that I can remember that. I was battling a lot of mental health issues. I still am. I mean, as we all are. But at the time, I knew that it was very severe. And additionally, I got sick, like physically sick, and kind of was at the cusp of, dying. I was in a place where I had to find a way to pull myself out of that situation. I started dipping back into these things that I always found some kind of comfort in. I started, reading tarot, and it's nothing that like professionally or anything like that. It's just more so for like guidance. So if I don't have an idea of how something's going to go, or I just want to like some more insight on a situation so that I can find comfort, I, will pull a card and just kind of meditate with it and just kind of see what the spiritual realm is trying to tell me and how I should go about it. So after that, so like I was saying, going back to what I was saying about getting sick and finding that light again, was also finding a lot of comfort in music. Again, there's this singer, her name's Chelsea Wolfe, and her music is just absolutely beautiful. Not sponsored by her, by the way, but but yeah, her music is absolutely beautiful, and that kind of helped me through a lot. And I play music a lot when I'm doing spell work, when I feel the need to. That coupled with dipping back into doing ritual, that pulled me out of that spot where I was. And I just started opening myself up more to these realms, and then being more comfortable, and then finally being able to call myself a witch. That title, I didn't obtain it by anybody. I gave it to myself because that's just always how it felt. I still kind of have, it's almost like coming out all over again, At first, I was saying, oh, like I'm bi, but then I'm actually gay, So that it's along the same line. So it's almost like I'm coming out of the broom closet, if you will. So yes, I do consider myself a witch. Now, that term means different things to different people. So it's not ever going to be one specific thing. There is like this certain history that comes with the concept of witches and witchcraft. The path of it looks different for everybody.
Okay, thank you. How were you introduced to Satanism?
Satanism was prevalent in the music I listened to. So I listened to a lot of like Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, and Deicide and stuff like that. Because they do like some male fronted bands. I won't hate on them because they do have good music. I just identify more with female fronted bands. That always, was in there, but I only knew the concept of Satan through the scope of Christianity. Christianity, of course, uses the symbolism of the devil to find a reason for why there's so much evil in the world. That was the only information I had from it. But it wasn't until I found the group, the Satanic Temple. That was like in 2015 when I found that out. And that was when they were building the statue of Baphomet to be placed in the Capitol grounds in Arkansas, I believe it was. And so they were raising money for it. And then the more I looked into it, that symbolism was like, oh my God, yes, like this is exactly for me, Do I call myself a Satanist now? That, to me, I've learned that that's not a path that speaks to me. I use the symbolism of Satan in my work, but I don't actively call myself that. Because to me, Satan is more of a symbol and an energy when it comes to being able to advocate for myself and being able to show like that self-love. I just never had that. So that was more of that vehicle for that. When I've actually like attempted to dive into Satanism in itself, it just wasn't for me to call myself. It never really felt right.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Have you incorporated witchcraft or Satanism in your art?
Yes. Painting has been a, not, I'm going to say hobby now because it's become a profession of sorts. um, Painting came about within the past couple of years. I've always done art in some way, shape, or form since I was little. And one that kind of lit the fire to be able to start doing that was my partner. They've been extremely supportive throughout, like our journey together. I just started creating paintings and whatever felt nice, and just, and then there I started feeling this drive to want to create more, and I still don't even really feel like I have a specific style. It's just something that I'm developing. So like all my paintings look different across to so many genres, but I like that about it. Now, if I paint, there's times when, of course, like I have fun with it, and it's just like a joyful moment to kind of forget the craziness. Portraying something that's important, use that as a moment of ritual.
What are your thoughts of La Santa Muerte?
I will preface this by saying that I have the utmost respect for Santa Muerte devotees, people that are devoted to her, very, very much, care for her and love her like a mother figure. And I have to give my full respects to that. Clarify that I'm specifically not a devotee of Santa Muerte, but I venerate her a lot in my work. The reason for that is because when I was saying about how I have used the symbolism of Satan in my work when it comes to doing ritual, that is the sort of dipping into what I consider to be my sacred masculine side. Recently, I've started to kind of dip more into the sacred feminine of myself, and not in a way of, not speaking in terms of gender, but in terms of femininity is somewhat presented. People would say like, okay, so the women are very soft and caring and things like that. However, the way that I see Santa Muerte is the aspect of those things, of being able to care for people that you love, but almost like a mother guarding her children from danger. It can be perceived as negative, I guess, but it's more so a drive. It's like wanting to make sure that people that you love are protected, and I feel that she personifies that. There's a certain rage to her, and the whole aspect of the sacred feminine is very, very prominent in the zeitgeist right now. We have a lot of leaders that are women that are coming into the scope. A lot of the creators that I follow when it comes to like political topics or things like that, they're all women. And it's my way of venerating not only Santa Muerte, but also the strength of all those women. Because we see a lot of in our government how women's rights are stripped away, and they're being told now, like, there's just the whole trad wife movement of being submitting to your man and things like that. I'm not going to speak negatively about somebody that wants to be a traditional wife and be like a stay-at-home mom, because that in itself, of course, is a job to raise a family. Telling women this because they want them to just submit, but for those purposes only. And now I'm seeing like this pushback, and so I've started painting her a lot, and drawing her a lot, but it's because it's just so prominent. Like I said, that the devotee part of it is something that I haven't dipped into, and I don't know that I will, because I don't particularly dedicate myself to deities. There's people in the witchcraft realm that do. I see it more in a way that's called like folk magic, and it has a lot more to do with nature and being able to create change through spell work. Like if you are trying to enrich yourself somehow, you know. I don't really do work for other people or anything like that.
Do your loved ones know about your beliefs? If so, what do they say?
My brother does, and we're very like-minded, but he's more of an atheist. But we are very, very like-minded, and he's fully supportive of it. My partner, of course. I always ask him, or ask them, sorry, what would you do if I just started like levitating? And they were like, okay, like this is what we're doing now. Like that's fine. So, however, there is a downside to it because my mom and I are very close, but she doesn't fully know who I am. I've kept that hidden for a long time. She knows because, growing up, I was goth and was into horror and things like that and going through my teenage angst phase. So she gets it and she knows that I haven't changed since then. She's not aware of the full extent of it. My dad, same thing. He has been the more supportive one. He's a little bit more hip, if you will. Yeah, it's just mainly like, that struggle like with my parents. Like I feel it makes me sad a little bit that I'm not really able to fully express myself without fear of a rebuttal in a negative way. That's pretty much the relationship with my loved ones, and when it comes to my practices, we just don't really talk. I don't really talk about it to them.
Yeah, me and you are in the same boat when it comes to that.
Yeah.
My mom doesn't really fully understand this whole concept that I have with my beliefs as well, but she will. And what kind of witchcraft do you practice? Spells, candles?
Ooh. Well, it's a little bit of both, but like, what kind of witchcraft you practice? I mean, that is kind of a loaded question because, like I said, there's so many avenues to go through when it comes to this practice. Like most people have pagan beliefs and more of like that Nordic symbolism that there is. Like I'm not well versed when it comes to like, Scandinavian folklore and things like that. I just know of it. I'm right now having to get to know my Latino side. I'm still like learning it because even though I grew up so close to the border, like I never really dove into that. I mean, I came from the time where they told you like not to speak Spanish. I'm getting to know that part of myself. My concepts and what I incorporate, taking from New England witchcraft, 16th, 17th century Puritan beliefs that witches were in the woods and that kind of mythology and storytelling was very fascinating to me. Like yes, why the fuck wouldn't I want to go into the woods and fly and devote myself to Satan? Like that's amazing. But that's obviously very just Hollywood and fantasy, unfortunately. Simultaneously, I also grew up with the concepts of brujeria. Most people will say brujeria and witchcraft are the same thing. I believe that they're mutually exclusive. Brujeria is very important when it comes to our culture because it goes back to our indigenous roots, and I'm still learning that part of myself. I kind of take from both elements. So if I want some kind of protection or feel the need for protection in a way, like spiritual protection, I call on, Santa Muerte to just kind of give me guidance, give me peace, and be able to take on challenges that are, happening in the moment. And if I need to feel like more strength and more, I turn to Baphomet. And even though Baphomet is not it's not really like a real deity, I find a lot of magical power in the symbolism of that figure. I kind of take from both. And as I'm also, both, I'm Latino and I'm also American, so like that is, I've always like taken both aspects of it, not really just one. So hopefully that answers your question.
Definitely very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And have you ever had an experience with the paranormal?
I've had a couple. My house growing up, I don't know how true all this stuff is. A lot of it has certain things to do with my family. When we were growing up, the house that I remember growing up, like one of my first memories was just kind of like literally like a one or a two room house that my parents and my two brothers, like we all like slept in one room. And there was just like a restroom, and then I remember like the living room and kitchen, and that's it. And there was like a wall that divided both spaces. My dad ended up knocking that house down. We moved in with my grandmother, and he built our new house. When he built that house and we moved in, it was a lot of fun. It was a two-story house. Like I'd never been in one before. I was enjoying it, and it was literally still a construction zone, but I had a blast living there. My I saw how my dad developed it, and it kind of like finalized it, and it was like really cool. And but then weird things started happening when I was say like 12 or 13. I was watching TV, and it was like pretty late, and the way my room was, there was a closet that had the light to it, but like you would pass through it. There was a door that would like lead to the bathroom, so I had like my own entrance to the restroom. That light, I remember I would have it on for some reason. Like I just always slept with it on. And this time I was like, turn the light off. And I was in that state of falling asleep. And then on my bed, I felt if someone grabbed my sheet and like tugged on it. I jumped out of bed and I turned that light on, and I thought it was like an animal. That's what I felt in there. I was patting the bed down, and was like, shit, like that was crazy. After that, the bed that I had, it was a twin bed, and it was pushed up against the wall, but in the center of the room. And my friend and I were doing homework, and so I was like kneeled with my elbows on the bed, like writing, and my friend was like facing me. When we're just like zoning on what we're doing, I heard, Joe. Like we both looked up and turned towards the corner of the room. We just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, I tend to ignore these things when they happen. The other one was watching TV, and my dad always had a habit of calling us from the bottom of the stairs. And like I heard a man, which I just thought was my dad, go, Joe, like really loud, really loud. And I was like, oh, shit, I was like, am I in trouble? Like, so I went to the stairs, and I remember yelling out, I'm like, what? And nothing. So I yelled again, and I heard nothing. The way that the house was, so like when you would go downstairs, you would go down one flight, and then you would turn, and there was like 3 steps. It was like a shorter staircase. And then when you got down the stairs, to your right, you would go down the hallway, and there was the back door to go into the garage, and then there was a garage door to go to the backyard itself. Had somebody been there, they wouldn't have enough time to hide from me coming down the stairs. And especially since you would pass 2 other rooms, which it was like the dining room on your left, and I'm sorry, the kitchen on your left, and then there was a dining room on your right, and they were just like open like thresholds. So again, and you could see in, and obviously nobody was hiding there. So I went outside, and my dad was grilling. He was making carne asada. I was like, what did you want? Like you were calling me, and he's like, I wasn't calling you. And mind you, my dad can be a prankster, but like he can't really fake it. So he was just like, no, like I really wasn't calling you. And I was like, well, where's mom? And she's at your grandma's. And I was like, okay. And my brother, Beto, I was like, where's Beto? And she's like, he went with him. And so my buddy at the time was over as well. I told my dad, I was like, I thought I heard you calling me, but it's fine, don't worry. So I went back upstairs, and I told my friend, I was like, you heard that, right? And he said, yeah, like it was your dad. I was like, he says he didn't call me. That was the more like light stuff, I guess. I've felt presence, like a heavy presence before. I would be laying in bed, and then all of a sudden it just didn't feel like you were alone. Like something would just come into the room, and it like felt really, really intense. And then I remember one time when it happened, I like went like after it went away. So anyway, my dad building this house. So we eventually moved out of that house. And my brother also had some experiences too, but there was like a bunch of other little like shit that happened. We sold that house many years later. I asked my mom and my dad, I was like, did y'all ever think that, the house was haunted? She was like, well, like kind of like we didn't talk about that. My mom said something that I also felt as well. Like, remember how I said that in the kitchen the thresholds were open? So the stove was like facing the wall with a window, and then there was the sink. So your back was to that threshold. If you were like cooking on the stove or like washing dishes or something, like randomly I would feel somebody standing like right behind me. It sounds crazy. I get it, does sound crazy. But you would feel someone stand behind you. The crazy thing is that my mom validated that. And especially when she was doing the same thing, she was like either cooking something or doing dishes. Like she would just randomly feel somebody. We had that validation. And then also, I don't remember who was the one that told me this, if it was my dad or my brother, but when he demolished the house, supposedly in the roof of the house there was a bundle, and in that bundle there was like herbs and eggs, and I'm not too sure, like I don't know the particulars of what the contents were, so I can't really say like this is what it was. But my grandmother on my dad's side also practiced witchcraft. My dad took that very seriously, but they like threw that thing away. But we didn't discuss that until much later. So that was the house that I grew up in.
Thank you, Jose, for sharing those experiences, and thank you so much for being part of the show. Guliax, follow him on Instagram at Jose Ramirez Artist, and I appreciate you, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here with a special guest. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, Ghoul Radio. This is Jonathan Ramos reporting from the Ghoul Cave. I'm here with Rob Cortez, a longtime friend. I'm a longtime follower of the show and just a podcast fan in general.
You're full of shit. Nah, just kidding. Thank you, John. Thank you for that. Growing up, have you ever gone to a curandera?
I have not gone to a curandera, but I have been treated with the huevo by my grandma. She would definitely help us out with the cleansing. So that is one aspect of curandero that I would say I have had.
And John, you're from Laredo, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you ever had a paranormal experience?
I have definitely had paranormal experiences. Particularly when I was a child, I had dreams of angels and demons, and the only remorse that I found was using a dream catcher above my bed. So I've definitely experienced paranormal activity, particularly shadows and other types of ghouls in the area. But usually I was able to find a little bit of solace with something beyond myself.
Perfect. Have you ever, what are your thoughts on La Santa Muerte?
My thoughts on La Santa Muerte, it is, to my knowledge, a belief in the Hispanic culture, and it has a lot of influence in the culture, particularly in certain groups in Mexico, follow that teaching. And it's kind of like memento mori, the belief that everyone must die and you kind of have to embrace death. So yeah, death is a part of life. It's a beautiful part. We live, we love, we die.
Great answer. Really in depth. Do you know anyone who is a Satanist? And what do you believe Satanism is for you?
I have known throughout the course of my life a few Satanists, beginning maybe in middle school, a few in high school, and definitely in my adult life. Throughout my journey, I've seen some of the benefits that have brought them. Particularly, I do see Satanism as a form of rebellion against certain teachings, and it's a beautiful thing. I think rebellion, remorse are part of the human experience, and that Satanism is definitely a way to explore that.
Man, yeah, definitely. It is a rebellious religion for sure. Jonathan, are you religious?
I would consider myself to be spiritual. If I had to place a religion on myself, it would be culturally Catholic. But I have been recently delving deeper into like the Wiccan traditions, reading up on that, and just kind of a little bit more just tapping into different spiritual aspects of life.
Thank you for clearing that up. Have you played the Ouija board? If you haven't, why wouldn't you?
I have never played the Ouija board, and I would definitely try it as an adult. But I think what has kept me away is I have heard a few witch podcasts, and one thing that they kind of talk about with the Ouija board is you are opening a portal to the spiritual realm, and in the spiritual realm there are positive entities and negative entities, and you do not know what you're communicating with. So if you do, we've spoken on this before, and we've talked about having someone cleanse or do a little bit of a ritual to protect us from any negativity. So if I ever did play the Ouija board, I would definitely want to do that.
Same here. Thank you so much, John, for being part of this season, and I hope we could do this again in the future.
Definitely, Rob. And if you aren't ghoulin', you're a foolin'.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I'd like to thank Jose and John for being part of this season and for sharing their beliefs. Episode 2 and 3 for this season will be focused on covering witchcraft, voodoo, santeria, and more. Stay tuned for episode 3, where we talk to a king and his queen, who are part of a fast growing religious practice in the Lone Star State. After survivors of Katrina settled in Texas. Stay tuned, Ghouliacs.